Got no background music today. The heater is going. I apologize, but I want to know if you guys hear me well enough without it. I'll move on after. I see there's people there. There's actually an open line of conversation here. So I'm in there going through books that would make some kind of sense, right? In what I'm trying to go through here, right? By M. D'Oreal. I'm looking for The Universal One by Walter Russell. Hello, AC, how are you? And I kept going to myself, you know, over the course of the last 5 years, it's insanity, right? But you read them, you read the different translations, you read the different kinds of things. So to get into, you know, philosophical and internal thought, you know, like your ability to process information, to gather and collect it, right? It's all in wave form, sound, visibility, you know, through light, vibration, you know, you feel the wind on your body, all that stuff, you know, speaking spiritually, there's one thing that makes all that stuff work and make all that stuff happen, you know? Got me live, yeah. Hello, Stacy. You have to take into consideration can you guys hear all right, or is that's really annoying, ain't it? If that's annoying, then I'll turn it off, but man, it's cold out here. Can't see. So that thing that you have to take into consideration, number one, is mind. That's your mind over all other things, right? It has to be caught by someone, something, before it will start to shine, right? And in the heading of this, I put the Illuminators or the Illuminati, right? Who are the gods of all of the ancient ages, you know, all the old civilizations, the old world, you know, the true seven wonders of the ancient world and all of that. The ancient age of man is what that would, right? It's the way our words are even put together are in a way to detach us from thought, you know? And we talk about gods like Thoth, right? Thoth, and the reversal of anything spiritual, right? Just that, for instance, thought. Sound is okay? Thank you. Hello, Capitan. So, everything is reversed. Thought. Thoth. God of wisdom, God of mind, thought. Thoth. So, ancient Egypt and everything that it taught has been reversed. Taught. Another word, right? Taught. But the sounds alone are something, right? Thought, Thoth. So everything you perceive is in wave form. As you're listening to this annoying goddamn heater. But why do they say the word taught or teach? You know, the way that the words are built. So there's so many different parts in all of these depictions of what steers humankind at this point in the world, right? And in every age, there was somebody that took that on as the champion for whatever that direction was going to be. Those are the gods on earth, right? The real men that were on earth that have steered all of humanity into its direction now, right? And they've hidden a ridiculous amount of history, and literally, I think hundreds of thousands of years, like literally, right? And like, who can actually nail down with absolute clarity, right? How old is the ancient pyramid of the three pyramids three great pyramids in Egypt, right? Of Giza. How old are they? How old is the Sphinx? Right? You wouldn't know. You're lied to, right? Well, how do you know if you're being lied to if you're not? I was in a segment of my search here, right? Whatever the hell you call all these books, right? Throughout the last 5 years, where I came across all this stuff on the Bolsheviks and where did they come from? Break it down to the earliest core. Who were they? How did they work? And blah blah blah, right? And I got to this point where I started to romanticize the idea that Hitler was some form of good guy, but to his own people, right? I'm not saying that I think Hitler is a good guy. I was there. I thought that, right? Nobody that is leading to the deaths of anybody else is a good guy now, as I more spiritually understand that myself, right? But so I was really curious. I wanted to buy the book Mein Kampf, right? And if I want a true interpretation of what he said, well, whose interpretation would that be? Right? That's an important factor in where I'm getting that information from. Right? So AI aggregates data. Let's just say 80% of popular culture agrees on blah, blah, blah. And this is not the widely agreed consensus of science, the Earth being a globe and all of that, right? And why does that matter? So now that everybody in the years following what happened in World War II are only exposed to a very tight network of ideologies and controlled academia, right? It would be very difficult. I mean, now that's more like 99% to 1 on what information is available to you, right? So if I want to buy Mein Kampf as a book to process the information in it, or what Hitler's ideas and thoughts were at that time as he's watching the degradation of society around him and all this stuff, and I want to get a clear understanding of what's in that guy's mind, and still, is he good or bad, right? So you have to take that into account. I looked on Amazon for Mein Kampf. Every name that was available in the top 30 different variations of that book ended with it was like a Sipowitz or a Steinberg, or right. So all of these German Jewish Khazarian German translations are coming through the Jewish mindset, right? They're allowed to tell it, but the German people who lived there were not. And then you look up, all right, well, who were the people that documented all this stuff and translated that were actually German and watched it happening throughout their life cycle, right? They got to experience what happened in 1930s Germany as a German person rather than a Jewish person. Well, guess what? Those books start going from $20 or $30 a piece, right? In the Jewish versions, up to $300, $400, and $500 a piece, right? So whose ideas are more valuable there in that understanding of the actuality of those things that happened right then, Darlene says, right, Shane Rapaski, they changed Bill Cooper's book, Behold the Pale Horse, was changed in 1991. If you look on eBay, they want $300 and up for it. Right, so, what you have available to you is somebody else's interpretation. It's a big factor. Who is that person? Who controls the, this who's the dam, right? Who's the dam that needs to be broken open? Like, all of that information is flowing forward. I put up this dam. There's going to be one little outlet of water, and I'm going to control how that water flows out of that dam, right? That's what these different ages of man have had over and over and over again. Those people controlling that flow of information, that flow of what gets on in the future to the remaining descendants or whatever, those are the gods. Those were always the gods, forever and ever, right? And I'm going to explain this with a way that's going to make it should make sense, right? So the first thing I want to ask everybody to do is just remove the educational books that you already had, right? The religious biases. As you're watching your world collapsing around you, you hate the Republicans so much, and you hate the Democrats so much, and you hate the liberal guys, right? Like, everybody keeps accusing me of being some liberal politics loving fucking nut, whatever, right? Not me. You got the wrong guy, pal, if that's where you're thinking, right? Because I'm pretty far past all of it. I understand it for what it is. It's that two-sided system that keeps steering us where they want it to take us, Go back and look up videos of Joe Biden or Trump from his previous presidency on quotes of things he said back then. I was looking up human capital. It can't be found on the internet anywhere, right? Because they obfuscate everything he said. They throw 50,000 other things. Look at what Trump did, right? One, in the media, in the social media, in the online media, in the news, right? They'll hit you with 50 different variations of Trump wants to take over Greenland. I'm not asking that, right? Like, what happened to the specific words I used in this query? Like, that say nothing about Greenland. I wanted to know about human capital, which is a term he's used regularly in his last presidency. And I can't find those videos anywhere at all. I can't find the video of Trump talking to all of the technology executives for, like, within the last 3 or 4 months of his last presidency. There was a meeting. He had a meeting. There was people from Microsoft, people from Amazon, people from Facebook, right? We're watching this technology take over right now. How many years ago is that? 6, 7 years, right? Not maybe like 6 or 7. Right? We had all of Biden, there's 4. And now 2 years of him, that's 6 or 7 years ago, right? Wow, man, I can't believe it went that fast already. But, so anyway, you can't extract this kind of information if you want to go and grab it and figure it out. Like, well, how did he form these words, right? 5G, it's going to save the world. We need to be the leader. Right now it's AI. We need to be the leader, right? And so what is exposed of Trump is that same dam controlling the flow of the water, right? But who is that? It's actually technology, right? The algorithms that are built on what you're allowed to be exposed to. Facebook deleting all of my videos, trying to explain how those algorithms work, all the different variables that are factored into the data and information that is algorithmically placed as a valid, a variable in front of you, right? How all of that works. It's not Trump, right? It's your view of Trump, right? And that's what they're attacking. Your view of Trump, your view of ICE, your view, right? That's what's being catered to, is your view of those things, right? So this goes into that concept, when I change the way I look at things, the things I look at start to change, right? Watch your algorithms. Start thinking about sneakers or whatever. Think about anything. Let's bring up for a conversation, just start talking near your phone and saying the words like pooper, scooper, right? The little dog tool for picking up the dog turds out of your yard, right? Like, so now you start seeing ads, right? All the aggregated data, that sound, all this stuff. Hi, Jacqueline. So that's just the basis for being able to understand what I'm about to get into as far as God is concerned. I did so many videos on these already, and like, I don't think other people were ready. Why? Because all of this outside influence on the way that their processing machine works have been poisoning them, right? Politics, news, media, this stuff, right? Social media. So all of that stuff has something to do with the way that everybody perceives the things that are out in front of them, right? So now we'll start at the beginning, right? You have, so there's two different gods. I'm going to tell you my perspective, right? So what I'm asking you is get rid of your Christianity. You don't attack me with it. Get rid of your conservatism, liberalism, all that stuff. Just get rid of it for this conversation, right? Blank your mind out and start thinking about the things that make sense to you as I talk about them and bring them up, right? Elaborate on them philosophically in your own abstract mentality without that conduit of thought being wrapped around the biases that you have, right? Get rid of them all. Get rid of them all. And just you think about these things from the earliest concepts, okay? But like, so now, yesterday I posted a picture of the creation of Adam. Thank you, Brenda. The creation of Adam. And there's a God in the heavens reaching down to the earth, and there's a physical man that has taken form on that earth. All right. If you ever watched any of the videos that I did before about the spiral of life, right? The spiral of life. Hang on. Which is phi. So I'm not going to be able to see, and try to make your comments as deliberate as you can, because they are limiting my ability to see them. I've been having some really big problems the last couple of days. Everybody, I was getting all these messages. Yo, I can't see any of your, any of the comments on any of your posts, and I can't comment on any of them. And I'm like, why? Like, I didn't change anything. And I go into my settings and I look like, view who's allowed to see whatever, your security settings and all that stuff. And it said, friends only, who can view your posts, who can comment. But I'm like, how the hell did that happen, right? Same thing, they had a whole bunch of followers, I think probably about maybe a year ago. All of these people I looked up the list of people I decided to unfollow, right? I didn't unfollow anybody. There was a huge list, and it was all of the people that would matter most to me to see, like not that they agree with me and promote me and say, hey, because I am of the same mind as you, right? I don't want anybody like blindly supporting anything that I say. I want everybody to like break loose and start thinking on their own, but I hope that my attempts are to get people to, break free and do all of what I'm doing for the past 5 years on their own, right? Because everything starts to become blatantly and painfully apparent at that point, You read a few books, you interpret things from your own consciousness, just like I asked you, get rid of all your biases before you decide to start paying attention or commenting or whatever. Look at these things as a process of internal philosophy and your own ability to, bring to thought, bring ideas to thought without, right? Like a concept I was saying this before. Do you need a physical body to dream? Right? What are you when you are in that dream? So if there's no physical body and you're still dreaming, do you still exist? Like that kind of, like these kinds of weird thoughts. I fell asleep last night thinking about that. Like, I have memories of dreams where I didn't have a physical body, right? I couldn't even prove that I did have a physical body. I didn't have hands. Right? I never saw my own hands. Like, what was I throughout this dream? Or was that a memory of not having physical form? And if you go through the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, that's the, Thoth, whatever. That's one of the key principles throughout the whole thing is men who are brought to form. So meaning they are brought to form on this earth. And that's all done with that spiral, right? So if you saw in that image, they said, well, you know, God looks like a brain there, right? And they bring up this shape of, they said, all right, well, what does the brain look like? There's the, you know, cerebellum and the, right? It all goes something like that, right? So the artistry in those days, the Greek eras, the classical ages, they all have to do with this. All right? All of them will represent that shape in one way or the other. If you look at a pharaoh's head, right? Same headdresses as the Pharisees of Rome. Same headdresses. They thought of themselves as gods. Pharisees. Right? So this is just a depiction of what the head was shaped like, right? But you have that natural flow in that shape. So if I walk up to this thing and I want to, you know, create a specific movement, what is my body naturally able to do, right? You see, like I always say, the little Tai Chi guys out in the park, you know, moving their hands and flowing, right? But that kind of thing, right? Your body only moves in a specific range of motion, right? It's not robotic. It's not. It's something that is like every other process of movement in all living things. When a dog runs, it has to lift up its leg and swing it forward and step it back down, but it's in that arc, you know. If I were to draw what a dog's paw looks like throughout its range of movement, it'll go like this over and over and over again, right? But that's the beginning part of how does a dog's tail work sometimes? Like that, right? If I'm looking out my window and I see a bird, right? I'm looking at a tail, a body, some feathers, all of it in the same range of motion. Another, right? So it's, see what I'm saying is that all of these things are inherent in the way that we express things. So that's vibration. That's movement, that's fluidity, that's air and moisture. And there was like, so the ancient Egyptian creation story was Ra was the great creator in all things. And then there was Atum was the earliest man. And then later down the road, Adam pops up out of nowhere, you know, in the Hermetic creations of religion through Greece and, you know, old mystic Judaism. I gotta put that heater back on, man. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. All right, so now you've got the range of movement, the range of nature's blueprint, right? Same thing, Michelangelo and Da Vinci and Pythagoras and all these guys, the divine ratio 1.618, right? That's that spiral. And all of those things, you've got the bird, the brain, the range of movement of the animals, a fish in a stream, right? That's another one. If you want to look up hydrodynamics, right? And you've got a stream of water running in this direction. Everybody wants to know, how could that fish sit right there without moving? Right? It's not kicking its tail, it's effortlessly just floating there in the water. But it looks big and fat. It must be magnified because, you know, I'm outside the water looking at it. Why does it look so big and fat? Right? What's happening is there's a stop here. Some water flows by, water over the top comes up in a spiral, right? Water coming around the sides creating that natural movement, that natural essence that is in all things, right? God is everywhere. God is in everything. The Gnostic teachings, God is in you and God is you, right? Fluidity, you lay in a hospital bed for 6 months straight without any movement, what happens? Your water gets bad, you die. You know, there's a story of some lady that was given 6 months to live, and doctor said, you know, you're given 6 months. She goes for a second opinion. The guy tells her go and climb Mount Everest. She climbs Mount Everest and lives another 40 years or something, right? Because there's now movement. The way water works, what happens is the fish flares its scales open to catch those little back swirls. And that's it. That's how the fish stays there. Sharks move through, you know, the water effortlessly, like the I can't remember the name of the shark, but the fastest shark, whatever it's called. You don't have to comment or anything, but you get my point, right? Same thing. Hydrodynamics. Nature has a way of creating things on its own. So just like that, the bird on a stem, you know, you've got this bird up here looking for food, but he's got his feathers fluffed, right? It's a lighter version of water. So there's heat on the ground where the sun hits, but it's 32 degrees up here, and at the ground it's whatever amount of energy gathered by the sun. That energy rises, the bird fluffs its feathers open, gathers up the warmth. What do we have? The way that water, that heat moves. Just like flame, same thing. It all moves in this shape. Everything moves in this shape. So when I say God, the seventh number, or the seventh letter of the alphabet, God. Why is it the seventh? It all, the only language that we can all agree on would be number. If we all looked at one bird out in the grass in some field, we would all say, there's just one bird sitting out there. We all looked and we saw two birds, there'd be two birds. It became a flock, and say, oh my God, that's too many birds to count, right? And like numbers stop being important at that right? There's an infestation of birds, like holy hell. You know, so like that as a concept, right? You think, what do I need numbers for? This goes into the whole thing with Eratosthenes. You need numbers to count wavelengths, right? It's the one. So you have to look at the concept. The numbers themselves, what you look at as a number. 6, 5, 2, right? Why are they all shaped the way that they're all shaped? You know, through the Greeks, through the Romans, through the Phoenicians, all of our alphabetic stuff was created. You know, I told you the bull's head was A, left, right? That's the bull's head. You got to watch those videos on that. There was a guy that I was watching explaining that. It's wild stuff. So everything is in octaves, is what we're, you know, is what we are removed from understanding about any number system, right? Everything is in octaves. So in music, I climb 7 notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, pure notes, right? Or you add in the other 5 half notes, right? Now I end up with 12. 1 plus 2 is 3. I have harmony, right? In that entire range, I've got all of the rainbow, which is 7 colors, 7 planets, 7 everything, right? But it's different levels. So now if I take those numbers, let's just say I have one number, represents one color. I don't need the shape of that number to identify how many are there. But they are there. They're wavelengths. They're cycles per second in light, in sound, and vibration, right? So now you're in stuff that's uncountable again. You got the gigahertz range, right? But again, why do you have to name it gigahertz or megahertz? because it's in a different range. It's in a different octave than what is natural to the body, right? 432 and the Rockefeller stuff, they knew this is the oldest language, is to count wavelengths. You don't need the shape of the number 1 to describe it. You just know what it is. So in that language only, without a description or a symbol to identify what that one thing is, now you've got the ability to count that one thing, right? So the ancient Egyptians had this thing. I don't remember where I came up with all of this. You add these together. 1.618 is the ratio that's built on. You guys that are new on my page, you're probably going like, what the hell is he talking about? But the people that have been around for a long time on my page are, you know, we're all going through COVID and everybody's trying to learn at the same time. Golden ratio. It's 1 plus 6, so I ended up with 7. Now 1.618 is, let's just use the language of shapes this time, right? I double the area over and over, right? And I have what's called the Pythagorean rectangle, right? So through nature, the Pythagorean rectangle is what's natural if you're using 90-degree corners, right? So that's 90-degree corners. Now, all of the rooms in all of the ancient Egyptian structures that are still existing today have that shape in them. Why? Because they look something like that, right? So, my bigger point here is that all things are measurable in that format if they're alive, right? And harmonious to nature or whatever. So not only is the shape of the room important, but now if I'm in the room and I'm looking at the ceiling, the ground, the walls, everything had this shape factored into it. The pyramids themselves had that shape factored into them. I don't quite remember how that goes. I think it's from the top down. I can't remember, but it's, you know, something like that. I can't remember, but it's half of the size of the pyramid. So now anyway, we're going to use numbers to describe all this stuff using symbology. And I go back into the square and circle, the Illuminatists stuff, right? The gods on earth who have learned their masculine and feminine mind, right? The Julius Caesars, you know, rewriting the months of the year because he proclaimed himself a god on this earth, right? So I've got squares, circles. In that square, I've got 90 degrees, 180, right? 270 and 360. And the same thing in the quartered circle, 360 degrees. 4 times, 90, 180, right? All equals 9. So if I take that quarter circle or that square, right? Quarter circle or the square. Now let me just describe this shape of the Pythagorean rectangle in a different format. Quarter circle starting at point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, 5, 6, 7. What am I left with? That one thing that is in all things, like God. What is God? If I put my hand up like this, right? My fingers are curled up inside my fist. You see the way that my hand is shaped now? Right? So that is God. And I'm going to tell you that from all of my interpretations, you don't have to agree with me. I'm going to tell you that is the one thing that is the fabric in all things. And that was called Heka in ancient Egypt. Right? We say, what the heck? You put a hex on somebody, a hexagram, right? All of that had to do with mysticism. It's all initiatic teachings, right? And Pythagoras and Eratosthenes and Aristotle and Plato and all these guys from Greece that were so philosophical and so thoughtful and so important in all of the ways that they think, right? You want to be a member of higher society, don't you? Well, you're going to have to learn these things that we want you to learn, right? So we're going to start making a school over here. You know, we're going to make the Pythagorean cult over there, you know, where they're not allowed to talk, any of the initiates, right? They're not allowed to talk. So, you know, when you have the compass to make the circle, right, this is called squaring the circle. So the numbers are just symbols for how all these things work in conjunction with each other. But the 9 is the Ennead. There were 9 original gods. And the one great God that encompassed all the other gods, which there are 2, you know, they're said to be the same one, which is Atum and Ra. Right? Same guy. So Heka was depicted as a woman with 2 arms coming out of the side of her head. If you look at any statues. Heka's staff was called the Waz scepter. The Waz scepter, like we say the word was. Again, in reverse. Saw. Through my interface. Why my interface? Why does the word interface, or why does the sound I come out when I'm trying to describe how I perceive light and vibration? I is the 9th number of, or 9th letter of the alphabet. Why 9? So 9 is reciprocity. When the Gnostics are saying God is in me and God is me, that is consciousness. That is the square and the circle both. You're being restricted from seeing one by the people who are keeping back the dam, right? That are controlling the flow of how you perceive notions, ideas, philosophies, abstraction, right? So I, being the 9th letter, my interface for what's in here and what's out there, has been flip-flopped. What's out there is more important than what's in here. That's what we're all missing now, like by looking at the gods of the day today, right? That's the people who are steering mankind through technology. So guess in the future, who's going to be depicted as a god? That's going to be like Mark Zuckerberg controls the way people speak. And Bill Gates controls the way that businesses function, and how technology monitors everything, and all these systems that we establish, right? You know, and that's to go back in, like, who is the illuminator, right? Would be the sun, which is said to be Apollo, right? In Greek times, or, you know, to the Persians, that was Mithra, right? To us Christians, when I say Christian, I mean a totally different kind of Christian. I am not a Roman Catholic. But to Christians, that would be Jesus. Now, I don't know where the story comes up about Lucifer, right? But Old Latin means, Lucifer means to bring light. So Lucy, I love Lucy. Somebody put some cool stuff on there the other day. Right? I love Lucy, Lucille Ball. Right? The people who control all of your perceptions through mystical, magical understandings of these different vibrations and frequencies and things, right? Lucille Ball. So Lucy, everybody's saying, I love Lucy. Right? Through Hollywood. anyway, Lucifer is another depiction of that. And I know you're going to hate to hear that, especially if you go to some kind of church. Lucy meant to bring light. So who is the Illuminati? Who is the Illuminati? You will always see this shape. The square and the circle brought together through gnosis. G-N-O-S-I-S. Why did they hide this and change no to a K? The Phoenicians did that, right? Why did they change? They don't want people going after this word. They don't want people, because you become uncontrollable when your thoughts and your ideas and your behavior and everything is from within, right? Now the outside world doesn't matter as much because I have changed myself to adapt to everything that is out there. I can accept all of it. I don't need bias. I don't need control. I don't need whatever, right? I don't know if I'm clipped yet or no. Still there? So gnosis is that internal reciprocity. You know, the body has a flow of energy in it naturally. The Vedics know it, the Indians. So your left side of your body, you wear a gold wedding band. Isis or Cleopatra would always be shown to have a snake wrapped up her left arm. Left side of your body is positive. Right side of your body is negative. The heart recharges the spent cells, the cells that have lost their energy wherever, up in your mind, making you run all the energy that your body possesses as the 5 elements, right? Your body being the 5 elements is earth and water, earth and water and fire and air, ruled by one, magic, Heka. All of this is governed by this. You can't disagree with that. So where does that come from? That's the same water that is in the heavens above. That is the divine spark where God is reaching down to Adam. It doesn't even necessarily have to be God. That's the whole point behind me saying that stuff yesterday. I'll get to that later. So all these guys represent the same thing. If you want to understand, there's a great book called The Secret History of Our World. Write that down. The author's name is Mark Booth. Write that down and read that book. You'll see what I'm telling you has been mythology used to describe different ages in time. Over and over and over and over again. The Mesopotamians had it, the Egyptians had it, the Greeks had it, the Romans had it, but nobody knows exact dates on anything. All they have is things written down in stone, and that's it. And that can't be, carbon dated and all that stuff they come up with, like radioactive isotopes determined, blah, 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 right, whatever. So I think that's all a pile of horse shit. So to a degree, I think there's some validity to it, but I don't know how much personally because I don't engage it. So through gnosis, the number 9 is this shape, right? So if you ever look up the ancient Hebrew, Heka is important, so keep that in your mind. The descriptions of these numbers, as I said before, keep that in mind too, right? 3, 6, put little commas here to remind you. Okay, 3, 6, 9. The hell was I just going to do? So the Waz scepter, again, the Waz scepter, which was a dog head tipped downward, that represented Egyptian magic, the fabric, the magic in all life, right? So that black magic, as it's called by the people who are actually using the black magic, which were the Hyksos. If you saw my video the other day, throughout history, the Hyksos have controlled everything, right? But the fabric of energy, the fabric of life was God. And that was the shape of it. So when I add together 1.618 and I come up with 7, right? 16, and that 7 looks like God, as just described through all this stuff, right? Where do we get the shape for the symbol for the number 7? Same place where we got harmony and balance through ancient Egypt. Harmony and balance, which is the number 6. So if we're talking about Lucifer, and we're talking about the gods on this earth, what are the gods responsible for? Shining light on things. So who would have been a god? Would be Eratosthenes, right? And if you break this down yourself, look up the etymology between the two. Age of man. Strength. Somehow this breaks into rule by strength in this age of man, right? Not necessarily in this age of man. We say the word era, we're talking about the specific time in history, in that era. So what was Eratosthenes? Was a choke point for the way rest of mankind is going to live from him forward. Through math and science and this physical outer world, right? We're going to say that everything is a globe and blah, blah, blah. And so now if I am the sun and I'm here and I am local and I put a stick up vertically here and a stick up vertically here and I shine directly to the north from the southern sky, there will be a direct line of sight to that stick. So we'll go to the center of there. And we'll go there. Okay? So obviously one shadow is much longer than the other shadow, right? So what Eratosthenes did, he said, all right, well, that one's a lot longer. Now, if I did this from 3 or 5 or 10 different points, anywhere on the earth, all at the same time, now that we have the ability to do that, guess what? I guarantee you we would all figure out that through triangulation, right? This is where the word comes from. Through triangulation, we're all going to say, you know, that sun's right fucking there. It's right here, right? So in order to kill all of that in people, where people said God is within, right? We have to create this idea that God is outside in this ever-expansive universe. You cannot acquire God. He's everything. God is everything, right? So now that you can see there's a direct line to the sun, you ever see that depiction of Akhenaten? All the sunbeams coming out of it. There's like a circle like this and a whole bunch of sunbeams coming out, and there's a guy, a sun on earth. It's kind of trying to say you are enlightened, you are God, I guess. You know, that's my interpretation so far. I mean, I'm sure there's something more scholarly out there, but it's meaning to say that I am the God. I am the one who casts the light, right? If I'm the one who casts the light, I control who the shadow is, right? So as a God, as the illuminated one, Lucifer, I can say, all right, well, I'm the light. And I determine what the shadow does based on my perspective, where I'm located, right? So now you've got the number 9 and how it plays into all of this stuff as what is God. So we'll go with the Nikola Tesla thing real quick. You had the 3, the 6, and the 9. Well, the 3 has been sloppily put together. Like you watch the English language in the United States now, destroyed. Yo, what up, cuz? Like that kind of stuff. Just nobody cares about proper pronunciation things anymore, you know, like the degradation of intellectual speech, right? Like you read some of these books, like Walter Russell's books, the Universal one I got here. You read through that book and, you know, imagine him saying that as an inner city slang dude, you know, like I think I'm gonna actually ask AI to do that. Yo, cuz like so the old style 3 in my, you know, great grandparents' day looked like that. The Waz scepter. Man on earth, with godliness brought down to him. Right? This is the defining line between the two. Number 3 represents man on earth. 9 is the man up in the heavens with the beard, watching everybody, making sure you're not doing anything wrong, right? You got the 3. The 6 is the harmony. That's the balance between the two. Man in physical form, man in heaven, being brought into harmony here on earth. So in the Egyptian analogy here, you've got Atum, first man, first creation. You've got, this would be Geb, physical manifestation. This would be Ra. And I think this is not Nephthys. Hang on a second. I think I have this right here. This one is you bastard. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we have Atum. Shu is the air. That's what, yeah, Shu. Geb was the earth. And Nut was the sky goddess that encompassed all of it. So, but you also have Osiris, Isis, Set, and Nephthys. So, so again, now if we go into the whole flat earth cosmology, where it came from, how it came to be, Eratosthenes was what created all these sophisticated systems and said, you want to be like us, you want to be educated, look, we're wearing the finest clothes, right? Because we're telling the biggest lies. It's like that today, right? Go get vaccinated, trust the science, right? Who has all the money? The people that are selling all the shit that's fucking killing everybody, right? But that's, the gods on earth today are not very good ones. Atum, Geb, what the hell did I just say? That Shu is the other one, right? So one was the air. You got it, in order to get this cosmic egg idea, right? Here's the 6. Here's the God of all gods. And 3. Right, so I don't know if this works out properly. I'm just kind of doing this off the cuff as right now. But this was called the goddess Nut. This watery vaporous thing is, I think what they just said was, let me just reread that. It's Shu, and Geb is earth. So Shu is air, and those are the two. Oh, Tefnut is moisture. So you've got Tefnut. And Shu. And the reciprocity in life. That's harmony, right? So you have God is the heat, the warmth. You have the coldness of mass mixing in the center, right? So if I'm looking at that from the overhead, and I say this is one big giant circle, how do things work? Just like a storm system and whatnot. Same thing, sky and water, and the way that it all works together. But the same things happen in the process of the body, right? Overcomplicated, but energy and whatever. So Shu is the other god. This one here is the one that's most important. And that is the goddess Nut. right? Tefnut. Nut is the container. The goddess Nut. I want you to look that up and Google it. Who was the goddess Nut? She was the dome. And she's depicted as having all these stars inside of her body. All of these stars inside of her body, and then the great God above, the God over all things, right? Look up also the ancient Hebrew concept of the world. Look up the ancient Hebrew concept of the world. Look at the photo, the image that's drawn. You'll see the heaven of heavens. And you'll also see the waters above. So the heavenly waters where Apep lives, the cosmic snake that tried to keep the sun from shining. Now you have this cosmic egg. So if we're here on a flat surface, as Eratosthenes and Aristotle didn't want us to understand, and I am the caster of shadows, my illumination on your ability to perceive reality, right? You are in my shadow, right? I am the God because I am anointed. I have squared the circle. I understand what these numbers mean, right? I don't necessarily have to use the shape of the number 9, but 9 in a frequency is what's important. The 6 in a frequency is harmony and balance, right? So if you get into any of this stuff with sound frequencies and therapies that people are using, right? 432 hertz is important, right? That's the one that brings godliness to the mind. 528 hertz, right? 5 plus 2, 7 plus 8, 15. That's my 6. 111 hertz. Kills cancer inside the body. Described as magic. Waz scepter. The number 1 in the Trinity, right? 3 times. You know? So, I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like I'm fucking... right? But, so, it's the same thing in the frequencies of light in the rainbow. Right? What is the frequency? I mean, I don't know these numbers. I've done it before, and I've actually calculated and added them all up. And guess what? Every color in its purest form breaks down to 3, 6, and 9. Every harmonious note, right, breaks down to 3, 6, and 9. You know? So the light spectrum and all this stuff they're doing with trapping light within the body. The soul is composed of light. Now, if I'm talking about that creation of Adam, now I'm telling you where I believe we are is on this flat plane. And if I were to take, you think about this yourself. If I were to take a balloon and I fill that balloon halfway with water, and then I stuff it down into a pond, what happens to the water that's inside there? Right? It's going to keep going through these cycles, right? There's going to be condensation will start to rise up depending on the temperature of the outside container outside of that balloon, right? So if the ocean water comes by, well, now if I've got some kind of light that forms inside of there, however the sun works, I can't tell you I know that. I don't think anybody will ever know that. But you've got the sun. So what is the sun? Generating heat. As it travels across the sky, what happens with the swell of the ocean? The sun ionizes and heats up the ocean floor. The water becomes warm. This is what creates, the great swirl of the ocean, the ocean currents, right? It also now, because the air is warm and cold, it behaves the same as warm and cold water, right? A natural spiral will be there. That vortex, right? Vortexian math, like Tesla taught, right? Tesla has all these incredible like diagrams of how all these numbers work together. You know, I was into this like probably 4 years ago, and man, was it just blowing my mind. But God is harmony, right? It is me in my relation to what God is. So if I am earth and earth only, and God is out here being maybe the sun, we would say, right? There's a great creator over all of it. This one would be what they say is Lucy. That is the light bringer on earth. Jesus on earth is the Son of God that dies at the end of the year. Dies. So in Roman times, this was their calendar. I brought this book out to show you. Roman times. Take a screenshot of this, okay? There should be 13 months here. I don't know if that's the right image or not. Okay, so in Roman times, that was their calendar. Take a screenshot. I'll hold it up while you do. Okay, Aprilis was the first month. Martius, 31 days, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, 31, 31, 28. February, cut short by 3. The 3 days that the sun dies. Dies in Latin, right? What do we call dying on earth? Right? We die. Our sun has died. The sun inside the body is now dead. So it dies, not dies like Spanish says. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 months. See? Who made this up? Who rewrote the new calendar? Julius Augustus Caesar. Septem was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Octo was the 8th month. Novum was the 10th month, or was the 9th month. Deca is the 10th month. Ianvar, I don't know what the hell that even says, but February was the last of the year before the sun dies. So the sun goes through its procession and it dies 3 days out of that year. What happens to Jesus around Christmas time, which should actually be named February by the old Roman calendar, right? Why did Rome destroy everything previous to it? Well, Eratosthenes, ruling by strength in his era, age of man, rewrote the Egyptian calendars. Why would he do that? You have a new age of man, a new world, right? A new Verald, a new Verald in Old German. Verald. Look at my pinned post. New Verald is what Eratosthenes, controlled the thoughts of men. We created math systems for you to follow so you could be up here with us and explain everything to all the plebs that don't have a fucking clue or the energy to go into anything because they're just too damn lazy. Why? Because all we got to do is poison them. So rather than allowing them to get too smart, what we're going to do is put some fluoride in their water, right? Well, who took all of that, scientific capability, right? They all claim to be, of one religion or another, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that they are, or that I hate them, or whatever, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying there is one group of people that understands how to poison the mind and keeping it from understanding this age of man. While we're all trying to figure out what's going on with all these frequencies that are super terrible, sickening for us. Hold on, I need heat. I'm dying. So I hope hope that's getting interesting anyway, right? Like, not that it's interesting. I'm hoping that more than anything, it heats up your mind, right? Start a fire in there and start to learn, why would anybody ever say that the earth is flat? Water's above and all of this. Here's where the whole conversation gets super interesting. Nut is described as having all these stars in her body. And she's got 7 chakras, which are planetes. What is the definition in ancient Greek of the planetes? There are different levels of density and all the different levels of water. So one might be Mars, one might be Venus, one might be Jupiter. Their vibrations and frequencies of light. In her body, she had one for her feet. No, one for the first one I think is at the groin, right? Sexual energy. If you get into all the books by Wilhelm Reich, sexual energy. Orgone energy is your first chakra. That's your base root chakra. Next one I think is your stomach. Right? But she's got these 7 planets in her body. They're represented by red circles. Those 7 planets. All of these outer atmospheres. All of these different levels of density of water. I have the balloon down underneath the primordial oceans and blah, 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 whatever. Right? What is keeping everything flat? Right? Why is it all flat? It's not necessarily flat, right? You're still inside of an area, but all of what you've ever been taught is reversed and backwards. If that's not so, why the fuck did they ever change my months? Did I measure time by? But there's always been 13. So, now, if you put a pyramid down here, and you understand crystals, and you understand wave propagation, how all of these things work, right? And you get into vortexian math, well, what is God? Planetes breaks down to wandering star. That's the definition of it, okay? That's planetes. Where all? Where all means this age of man. That's Old German. Eratosthenes' time. Rule by strength. Well, what is strength? Mind is strength, right? So now you have these pyramids. Esoterically, we're teaching everybody the pyramids are in perfect alignment with the stars above, in the Orion constellation. And, what is Apollo in a constellation? What is Sagittarius and all these different constellations, which at one time were in number 13 constellations. Look up the Temple of Dendera in Egypt. That's like I think it's the Temple of Hathor, right? 13 zodiac signs. The one that is missing in Greek times was oh my God! I always forget what this one was called. It's it'll come to me, I think, maybe. But it was like it depicted the healer, right? So that was the healer. It was called Ophiuchus. It was like Ophiuchus or something like that, like in a Greek spelling. Ophiuchus was the healer constellation. That one has been removed. Why? Because Asclepius was the son of Hermes, who created the 7. So his staff, the staff of Asclepius. I don't have it out here. Yes, I do. So the staff of Asclepius intersected at every chakra. Right? You've got 7 intersecting points, like DNA, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 intersecting points. Each one of these points is a chakra. This is where the Heka travels downward. So these are called, all right. So if you look at the pharaoh's golden death mask, where the pharaohs have a golden crown to purify the outer resonant energies of the cosmic energy from above. There's two different depictions of animals on there. One is a cobra with its hood flared open. That represents a fiery serpent. That's the energy that is traveling upward on the right side of the body, as I drew before, right? So that fiery serpent meets it's a condor. It's an Egyptian condor or something. I can't remember the name. Well, just look up the names behind those two gods. What, you know, it's not gods. It's basically saying that both of those, my magnetic self and my fire self, meet in the mind, esoterically. So if both of those, that's what they're saying. I am godly because I am composed both of the cold and the hot, the electrical and the the conductive, right? It's all of these different dualistic things. I am both, and so that's what to say. All of this is. I am both in the human body. I am both, right? So those chakra points. Now, I don't know where I was going there. And again, if you look at the way that energy travels through the body from the top down, what does it look like? Like DNA, right? So Egyptian magic is this. And then if you're talking about Asclepius, and Ophiuchus was the Greek name for the healer, but Asclepius was the son of Hermes, thrice great, 3 times incarnate on this earth. Asclepius was a healer, and he was said to have gotten so good at healing, he started to raise people from the dead, and Zeus got pissed off about it, and took Asclepius and put him into the heavens. Well, that's the constellation, is the heavens, right? So as I'm talking about that painting of Michelangelo's, the creation of Adam, what are the stars above? I want you to go look up sonoluminescence, or the star in the jar. The star in the jar. Go look that up on YouTube right now. So if I have a fuel source, let's say that's a log, and I attach flame to that log, how long does that log stay alive? If I have a fiery burning rock up in outer space, in a vacuum, right, where everything is inert, there's no oxygen to feed that fuel to burn, well then, how the fuck does it work if it's out there? Right? Why doesn't it burn away like the log does? How long do we get with these stars that burn forever? Right? This is where the interesting part comes in. This is piezoelectrical energy, and what they were saying by putting the gods in the heavens. You saw that post I made yesterday where I said I'm going to do a live today at noon, putting the gods in the heavens. This is all weight of stone stacked on top of crystal after crystal after crystal in the quartzite and the granite. The top third of the pyramids is some kind of quartz. Top third, there's some kind of quartz in here. So you have all this weight stomping down the natural resonant field of the earth. Back in the 80s, they kept on saying there's aliens that live on another planet, and they're sending us radio frequencies. We just can't determine what they are. Right? Just can't determine what the message is. The scientists are working on it, right? What is that? Everything has a radiant value. Radio created by wavelengths, right? Subtle energy frequencies. So that cosmic order, cosmos, was what the gods were there for. This is what they called the watchers, the stars in the body that the Mesopotamians fucked up the story of so that they can control everything from Mesopotamia forward. The stars in the body of Nut were put there by the resonant energy of the earth, which is feminine, accepting that radiant energy. The watchers were the fallen angels, the stars that fell from the skies with their radiant energy and impregnated the daughters of men, right? So that fallen star, here's that fallen star reaching out to touch the man on earth, Atum, Adam, divine spark, divine consciousness from the divine arrangement, the divine order of the outer cosmos. That's what cosmos means, the divine arrangement. It does not mean outer space and vacuum, right? So the cosmos is the divine arrangement. Well, why do they say that? And why is there 13 zodiacs? That is so fucking satanic, and it's totally against all Christianity and blah, blah, blah. 13 zodiacal signs or interpretations of specific fields of energy within every given month, which are 13, right? So, what determines the outcome of this man on earth is already written into that cosmic order. So when those stars are out in the cosmos, floating around this plane that we live on, right, in a cyclical nature, so this one may be running this way as a current, and this one may be running this way, and this reciprocity is endless, right? So all of these different layers of that onion are moving in different orders. Just so happens the one that's closest to this realm where we live is moving in one specific direction at all times, right? So if you notice, the stars are always following the sun. So, bringing life to man on earth. Well, if I want to be a God, where that chemistry of, let's say, we're just going to use regular numbers, right? I've got a Rife machine, and I break down all of the different frequencies by which ones are harmonious and healthy to the human physiology, and all the ones that are best for your body, 3, 6, and 9. They all break down. They all reduce back down to 3, 6, and 9. So 9 is God. 9 is the number that represents God if you're speaking in these, like the ancient Egyptians did. Okay? So if I take the Trinity, what the hell did I do with that? I had a rag here. Don't know what I did with it. Shit. Not good. Oh, I put it in my pocket, didn't I? So, I hope I'm getting somewhere here. I hope you see that it's not pure lunacy, right? It's breaking down these books in a way you can see, like, all right, there's facts here. Like, what's all the stuff that's been washed away, right? Like trying to learn about Hitler, who controlled the dam and the flow of the information coming out from that dam from there forward, right? In all of these different ages, from one into the next. We say the gods, it was a man on earth. That God was a man on earth at one time who controlled the flow of how humanity is going to behave as they shined their light on the men on earth, right? And so your this chemistry of cosmic energy, light and vibration and frequency, that's how I use my Rife machine. I can set a specific frequency where photons are in their own thing, right, as a thing that exists as an atom or molecule of light or whatever, right? That thing resonates a specific field of energy. So let's just say Mars is out today. I've got here, let me do that different. So Mars is out this month in the sky. Well, as you get into the outer realms, obviously the water is going to move more slowly. On the inside, as in day to day, the stars will come up every night. But the planets tend to move a little bit more slowly, right? So these may all be running in the same direction. I mean, I don't know. I'm theorizing with that, right? But that cosmic energy from each of those planets, let's just say this one's got 1, 2, 3, and this one's got 6 resonant wavelengths coming off of it. And this one's got 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 9 plus 3. I would have 12 wavelengths of energy reaching the earth, impregnating the woman of man, the daughter of man, as the watcher, impregnating the womb. And that is the cosmic order that is the blueprint for your consciousness and your zodiacal sign, right? On the other side of that, we come from light. Our consciousness comes from light. I'm just wondering how many people are going, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Am I making sense? I don't know, man. Resonant frequency of quartz, 369 English. That's all I can see for now. But so the other part of it now, right? If you are a God on earth and you control the flow of information, you become a part of the divine. Oh, what the hell is this? Thoth calls it the. You become a part of the Akashic record. So everything is written in the stars, they say, right? So when I am godly on earth as a pharaoh, I go into the pyramid that collects and absorbs radiant energy from the sun and the moon in the king's chamber, where my consciousness has reached a new level, and I want to tune myself to become that God in the heaven, so that I can become a part of the structure that determines what mankind's general direction will be in the years to come. Right? So if I am a God on earth and I am projected upward and outward into the heavens as a star, that star being me now, I become a part of this cosmic recipe for what determines how people will behave for all future generations. If I am a God, I am made immortal in the heavens. If I am a God on earth, or Jesus on earth, I am made into that heavenly body. Now look up sonoluminescence. Here's the whole thing, all of it, right? If this is all water in different layers of density as it goes, hot, cold, whatever, right? Different layers of density over and over and over again in my contained unit. What, my brain was just wandering there, I apologize. It's such wild stuff. So, like, that is what these are for. And I can tell you that because I've looked at, and I've looked for specific maps. What is you can find it on my pinned post. The one that I was most blown away by was all of the ancient sites over in ancient Egypt, right? All of the ancient sites are a mirror image of the Orion constellation. And then Robert Edward Grant, or whatever this guy's name is, the gatekeeper people, right, comes out and says, hey, we found these 2 new pyramids, where the 2 stars of the constellation are there. The pyramids aren't there. I've been talking about this for a year or 2 now, right? I already knew the stars were there, and I always wondered, well, why didn't they ever, find any pyramids or structures there in that location? 6 months after I was like really, really hard reading about this, Robert Edward Grant comes out on his YouTube and starts saying, guess what? We found 2 pyramids. Guess where they found them? Right? Look up the 15-year-old Canadian boy as well. 15-year-old Canadian boy finds ancient, Peruvian or something, whatever, temples based on using the stars as a map. So now, why is it happening over there? I need to find this flat Earth map because I gotta show you something here. I don't know what the hell I did with it. Maybe I put it down here or up there. Hold on 1 second for me. I really gotta urinate too, so I don't know what I'm gonna do there. Wonder if I can pause the video. I don't think I can pause the video. I don't know what the hell I did with it. But if you look at the Gleason's map, right? If you look at the Gleason's map, you'll see that there's a broken apart Earth as a structure, as a crust, right? The hell was I just going to say about that? I don't know what I was going to say about that. I don't know what I did with this damn map. But so in that map, you're looking at something that's been busted open, right? And they find all these ancient sites in Peru and over in Egypt. And they saw, well, the geology forms are exactly the same as they, over in South America as they are over in Egypt, right? And they say there was a great war back in Mesopotamia. It was like of epic proportions, and like nuclear stuff was involved and all this. But if you look, as the stem of Earth would be concerned, whatever that stem is. Now, if you think about the ancient Egyptian Ankh, the cross with the loop at the top, right? That's how this all works. So there's a stem coming up and out. Egypt is at the very center of the body of land in the world, right? In the, whatever, on Earth, whatever you want to say, right? So this is my approach on flat Earth. Not necessarily flat Earth. It's a terrain that we live on at the meeting point between the heaven and the earth, right? Or the heaven and the oceans below. So that being central to the way that mass of how mass comes together is just more fiber, right? People die, their ash and sediment from their body returns to the dust, their soul body returns to the outside, becomes a part of the light again. If you read the Emerald book, Emerald Tablets of Thoth, it explains this over and over. So those people in that creation, that Adam's creation painting, all the people in the background, they're what they call the children of light. The children of light have not yet come to physical form on earth, but they are part of the light in the outer cosmos that determines what the men on earth are going to become. And they define what the blueprint for man on earth is, right? What your personality will be like, how you are going to engage life. And then I start looking into my horoscope stuff, and I'm a Scorpio times the fucking, 13th, right? Literally, my birthday's on the 13th, and it's always been my favorite number. And my 13th birthday, my mom bought a pack of balloons that had 14 in it for whatever weird reason. It was 14, but I had 13, and we all said, wow, that's weird, 13 on your 13th birthday. And all these different 13 things kept coming up, But 13 is a very powerful Masonic number, and so as I'm getting into all the esoteric stuff, it's like wizardry, like that's how I literally feel like that sometimes, because I'm taking in all these concepts that really require an abstract mentality, right? I can't be, I can't be anchored down to this world, like Mithra, right? Mithra, the light bringer, Mithra. The Skull and Bones that's the god that they worshipped in the Skull and Bones, but through these initiatic schools, right? That's the Lady Liberty, right? The statue, the Statue of Liberty, right? With the anchor at his feet, right? Lucifer, the light bringer in a different age following Persia, But the broken chain at his feet, I am not bound to this earthly realm. I have ascended, right? Jesus. Speaking apophatically, that is the word you need to look up, right? Jesus, I am the light, I am the way, I am the path, and that's what I am now. I have my own path of thought, and I keep attaching things to that. As I grow through life like a tree, I stem off in this direction, stem off in this direction. The trunk is still on its way, right? I am the way. That's the path. I am the path. There is no way to God but through me. Through me. Not through Jesus. Through me. God is here. So in this apophatic speech, I am the wind, right? The god Thoth would talk like this, apophatically. I am the earth. I am the light. I am all of these things in my body, right? I am. I am. Not those gods outside of the God within, right? This is where all the Gnostics ended up getting killed, right? Because, like, hey, we don't want your God that's up in outer space that we can never get to unless we listen to the priest, who's going to direct us in whatever way he wants to steer all of mankind, right? That's the reality behind all this stuff and religion and all that, you know. So that's what I've been digging for all this time, and I'm freaking stunned at this point that I landed where I did, because I am now completely spiritual about all my understandings of these things, right? God is that spiral thing. That is the life, the fabric in all things. Thoth says that in the declarations of Thoth. You know, I am that which permeates all things. So it's just like, man, like now that you've read so much in and out, you're trying to get to some comprehensible point that, you know, you're desperate for other people to understand. And once you finally get there, it becomes a lot less important. So, you know, now that I'm trying to explain this to people, it's not for my own freedom, because I already have that. It's for their freedom, right? The freedom of intellectual slavery through science, through math systems, through religion, right? Through society. The only thing that matters is the way that I see things. So I need to work on me if I am going to be the light and the way and the air, right? I hope that's all making sense. So this is what I'm saying. It brought me to a point. If you ever saw that Carl Jung video, the guy asks him, do you believe in God? And he says, oh, I know God. That's the epiphany that I've reached, right? That's how I say. I don't need the numbers to describe God. I don't need the shapes to describe God. I need my conscious mentality. That thing that is missing from Adam, right? In the creation of Adam, the soul from above is not quite connecting, right? That spark of life, that spark of divinity is not there yet. Maybe should I be reluctant? Did I just receive it? I mean, I don't know what the painting means overall, but that God from the heavens was a soul surrounded by the cherubim, the light energy that gives all life and consciousness to all life on earth. I gotta pee, man. I'm gonna try and run through some of these comments. This is gonna be funny, because I'm gonna have to pee. Just don't make fun of me if you hear any strange noises, all right? Like water running. Oh, man. Hold on. Give me 1 minute. My apologies. I'll hit the comments once I get back. I hope you guys are enjoying this. I mean, I don't know. It's freezing, man. Oh man, I'm gonna put the heater on real quick while I'm gonna go freeze. Give me 1 minute. Standing in knee-high snow out there, but so, oh man, my bladder was about to bust. Thanks. So anyway, that's the overall thing, you know, on history. You know, what we're going to take in as history, what we accept as history, this apophatic speech, right? It is you're built to take everybody else's word for it, right? That includes me. Don't take my word for it. Go and look these things up yourself, you know? Those little ones fill up quickly. It's true. Oh man, I saw a video yesterday had me cracking up. It's like, guy's like, hey baby, what do you love about me so much? What makes me better than your ex? And she's like, oh, I'm so happy your thing ain't as big as his was. His just hurt. He'd be busting me up and killing my guts. And yours is the perfect size. The guy's making this real sad face, the little ones. That's funny. Going at shivering. Yeah, it's cold out there, man. But so I wanted to just cover all of it, so as talk about the 3, 6, 9. All right, so the 9. All right, let's go through the 9 thing real quick. If you add all that stuff up now, you have the number 9. So you've got man on earth. Jesus is speaking apophatically like all these other guys. He's describing things. I am that thing, telling you what I do, what I am. I am the wind, speaking as the wind, telling you I spread seed across the plains. I am the wind that rushes down from the mountains high. Thoth always says that, right? So that's the same thing with Jesus, who learned where? The center of creation, right? So the 3, 6, and 9. God's number is 7. The 7th heaven and all of that. That describes the Hekastaff, ancient Egyptian magic. That's the Hekastaff, the Waz scepter, ancient Egypt. 1.618, where we started. So, what is 9? 9 is that comes from itself, and in the language of numbers, again, the foundation for all thought, right? And communication is the language of numbers. So stick with me for a second here. Okay? 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. 4 times 3. 12. 1 plus 2, 3. 5 times 3. 15. 1 plus 5. 6. 6 times 3, 18. 1 plus 9, or 1 plus 8 equals 9. 7 is 21. 2 plus 1, 8 times 3 is 24. Right? You getting me there? 2 plus 4, 6, 9 again. So I can take one whole and split it into father, mother, child. And it would be 0.3333 endlessly. That one hole, I can never get quite to it. Number 9, coming from itself, of itself, right? Of itself will always exist. Is the soul eternal, right? That's how Thoth describes that. The soul eternal. The answer to 9 wavelengths times 9 wavelengths, right? Individually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the heaven of heavens. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is your vortex. That's the pyramid. Now, if I have a positive and I'm counting up to that 9 in positive, let's say I'm moving upward, what happens to the air beneath me? It fills in and takes my place. So if I send energy into the heavens above, then energy has to replace that. If I drop a stone into water, right, you see a little drip will follow it up and outward, right? So 360 degrees, 60 degrees at each point. That's times 6 of 360. 360 degrees in that shape. Right? 360 degrees is positive ascension, negative descent. I am both God and whatever, right? But that's the point behind, you know, their God, right? Lucifer or Baphomet, right? That's a goat head with boobs. That's Lucifer as the man and the woman, right? Lucifer or the you know, the Statue of Liberty, you know. So, what's an amazing comment, Jason? We need to stand on our heads. How long is the video so far? It says there's only 20 people there, so it's, you know, probably got boring for a lot of people, or the heater's pissing everybody off. I mean, I don't. 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 4, 36. 9 times anything will always return to itself. Yeah. So of the heaven of heavens will always return. That's basically saying we come from the heavens as the soul above, right? The image of the creation of Adam is that soul above, bringing life down to earth to bring on form. It dies, and that soul returns to the heavens. Well, how does it get there? Depends on how you behave while you're here, right? So if you want to become a part of the divine arrangement or the cosmos, you know, having your own pyramid built for you so that you can become a part of the grand design on the future of mankind, you know, that's what the number 9 represents, is that one thing that always returns to itself, the eternal soul. So I hope you find it interesting, man. It's mind-blowing. I mean, it's mind-blowing to go through all the esoteric books, you know, like Cornelius Agrippa. Like, there's so much crazy oh, man. Written in 3 books between the years 1509 and 1510, this was an ambitious attempt to rejuvenate the art of magic, which had degenerated during the Dark Ages. Why did it degenerate during the Dark Ages? Somebody has taken over all of its knowledge. They've given the world electricity and dirty radiation, and you're all getting sick and you're all getting cancer, right? But the people that don't wear plastic, that will only eat pure foods, as the ancient Egyptians did when they stole their spiritual technology, those people have given you electricity. Why do the Amish not use electricity? Right? Because they know these things out of the Old Testament, right? Electricity is not meant to be the way that we use it, right? So that magic, and, you know, so that, anyway, this is the things. When you get on that path of thought, you can't see things differently. But you can start interpreting all this shit the way that it actually is, you know? So he did this by assembling an intellectual and theoretical foundation from his extensive collection of sources. Agrippa started with a systematic exposition of Phicenian spiritual magic and Trithemium demonic magic and treatise in practical magic, right? So when you hear all these things, you know, the pentagram is evil, and 666 it's all evil, and Lucifer is Satan, right? It's not, man. Like, that's the point. They're telling you all the things they don't want you finding for yourself, right? The light, the way, all of these are allegorical concepts that are explaining all this stuff that I'm trying to get to you. It's not a religious thing. It's not, you know, blasphemous and all that, right? It's the truth in the core of the way that life exists. That's what all this stuff is about, right? So if you're a Freemason, a Rosicrucian, or a Knights Templar, whatever, right? All of this is the holiest of holies. I am meant to be me here on this earth without any other man having dominion over me. I have dominion over this world, right? So I am a God on this earth. Other people give me their tribute. I give my tribute to other people, right? They become a god on this earth when they're admired for the things that they do, right? Trump, right? He was on the wrong side, clearly, right? You know, whoever, right? Whatever, Macron, you know, like, these people are all shitbags, right? And they are all Illuminatists, right? They all cast their shadow. They cast their light onto you, and you live in their shadow, right? So you think about the way these words are all put together, right? The Illuminati, to enlighten, right? I'm going to shine my light on you, and you are going to carry my shadow that I left upon you. And that's how they stay ahead of everybody, you know. So you got to free yourself from that dualistic manner of thinking and all these different things, you know. Fear-mongering 2, 66613. Denise Solon has a question. I can't see it, though. Watch the Fittest Flat Earther if you do. I have seen a few of his videos. Yeah, I like him. But I can't read all this stuff in the middle of the live, Jason. I don't know. Shane, you watch the Flat Earther. Put it in perspective with your thinking and ideas. Well, I mean, it's physically achievable, right? The knowledge, the things that you want to understand, it's all physically here. You only have to open up your mind and see them as they are, right? So what is a star? If you watch the Star in a Jar video or sonoluminescence, right? If I encapsulate a wavelength inside of something it cannot escape from, it will just keep getting stronger and stronger, right? It's like if I yell into a canyon, right? There's a sound with 2 open ends on each side. Bing, 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 sound leaves, it's gone. If I yell inside of a pyramid that has wavelengths generated by piezoelectrical energy inside of a resonant chamber that emits a specific range of frequency, not as the power plant that they said that it was, but the power generating device that it was made to be, which was to project that resonant energy upward and outward. And that is what they did, was they focalized all of that photonic energy and generated plasma. And that's where the star seed is born, into the dense waters above, right? So those stars become a part of the divine arrangement. Now that God will forever be able to cast his light upon the fabric of mankind, right? The way that all consciousness is established, or what it becomes later. So this is mind-bending to say the least, and keep your heater on. It's like white noise. Yeah. Well, I mean, I want it to be. You're going to have to keep this. I mean, you're going to have to keep this video on your own, or take clips out of it or something, because it's going to be gone in 30 days. They kill my videos now, so. God, generate, operate, destroy. I like that. That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much it, right? I mean, that's the point. Like, why do they keep going back and destroying all these ancient sites and stuff? And that's the reason why. They're destroying the evidence of how we got here. You know, you got to think of it. Look at the world that we're in, man, right? Over and over again. You know, I could pick any part of this out of the Egypt, right? These are the translations by this guy, by Dorial, I think, right? Mike, I can't remember his first name, but the key of time, right? The key of time is the Ankh, right? List ye, O man, take of my wisdom, learn of his deep hidden mysteries of space, the cosmos, right? So the guy that broke this down was just being force-fed all of the science shit about the globe stuff, right? So in his interpretation, he says this is one of those things, you're detached, right? Ancient Egyptian language then becomes somewhat Mesopotamian, right? And then after that, the Persians take over. Now it becomes a little bit of an influence of Persian culture, right? And then Greece comes in. And then Rome comes in and destroys it entirely. And everybody turns into Muslims suddenly and stops worshiping the old gods. Why? Because if you don't accept Christ, we're going to have to burn you, you know? So in all those different interpretations throughout time, everything changes. Like we say here in America in English, as designed by the Phoenician, you know, the merchant tribes, you got to buy our stuff, right? So they needed us to think these ways, right? You know, I mean, it's just basically all of the translations are going to, they've been put forward, backward, you know, and in English we'll say, I'm going to the store, and the Spanish will say, to the store I will go, right? The intent and the meaning is still there. The words don't need to describe it. I could literally point my finger and say, nope. But that's what I'm saying, forward and back. So when you hear the way that Thoth talks in these books, or Jesus, or the Bibles, or, right? It's all in apophatic language, right? I'm telling you as that thing. And it always sounds kind of backwards, but that's why it sounds backwards, is, it's the way that they spoke, right? We've been reversed, right? And the way that we think now, from the masculine, the divine feminine mind, we now have become the masculine mind. War, destruction, get a sword, rather than being nurturing and caring and more feminine in the way that we approach, our interactions with other human beings and all that stuff, But that grew in the abyss, bringing order and harmony in space. Know ye, O man, that all exists has being only because of the law. Know yet that law shall yet be free. I mean, I don't have to read all this stuff, but I could take any part of this book and describe these things as, they give us their analogies and how they're described by the Bible. Like, there's stuff, and you always bring up the Bibles, delve deep into the mysteries of wisdom. Find the key to the kingdom of the stars. Right? Thoth is telling us that we have the power. So this is the guy's breakdown on what he means by saying that. Thoth is telling us that we have the power to connect with the stars, but we must first find the key within ourselves. This may refer to the idea of the light body present in many mystical traditions, right? Where it is believed that the soul can ascend through the cosmos when it reaches a certain vibrational level. That's what I just explained, all that stuff, right? So the ancient Egyptians believed that pharaohs, upon death, traveled through the stars and became celestial deities. How did they do that? In Sufism, there is a mirage, the mystical journey of Muhammad through the heavens. In modern science, quantum physics suggests that consciousness may not be confined to the brain and could exist in a dimension beyond space-time, the cosmos, right? It's fucking wild. So you read it, and most people go, none of this makes sense. And I can read it and go, oh my God, make that make sense to other people. Boy, you're going to be the retarded guy that everybody's looking at, And then I bought this book mistakenly. This is Conversations in the House of Life. And again, who are the people that destroyed this spiritual technology being described here, right? This guy is Verlag Harasowitz, right? So I can't depend on let's just say a Khazarian or a Hyksos descendant's word on how these histories and archaeology stuff has all been put together. I can't depend on that. Right? Same as I can't depend on it in the context of describing to me what Hitler truly was. I want to know that, right? I deserve to know that. It's my own interpretation should define, what that is. Well, if that's not left for you to have access to, you're never going to know, man, right? So let's control the media. Let's control the way the books are printed. Who prints the books, right? And how are they doing it now? You're on social media where all your shit you talk about and write, all your great ideas, zap, no more written word, right? So the written word, it's write books, train your mind, learn these new things, which are the old things, we just need to learn. We'll understand it more and more. The yin and the yang, that's what we have. That's why we have to marry them. Feminine mind is also the creative mind, art and music. But yeah, my brain didn't work. I wouldn't, if I had never picked up a guitar just to try to, I always loved it, but I love music. If I would have never picked that thing up, man, I wouldn't be anywhere near here, right? I used to be completely right side strong. I could throw a football 100 yards with my right arm, but my left one, forget it, man. You will be calling me of the other sex if you watch that happen. But why am I so right side strong, right? And I pick up a guitar, and now I start to gain a little bit of dexterity with my left hand, and boom, like all the shit starts happening. Oh my God, I'm starting to understand like how does music work and vibration and light frequency, right? And all these thoughts start to flood in, right? Because now that spiral in music has been brought into my mind, and the consciousness within, right? The shape of that spiral. One is, I think they literally travel in opposition to each other, and it generates that, or powers that crystal inside the pineal gland and all that, right? Where our consciousness resides. So in that story of ancient Egyptian creation myth, so Atum creates these two entities. One is water, and it's not fire. One is water and one is earth, or one is water and one is air. That's what it is, and the way that they interact with each other. So he creates them. They take off. They run away out into this great ocean, and he takes out one of his eyes. This is where the stories of Odin lost an eye. Right? This is what I'm saying. These are the earliest stories of ancient Egypt. So now Odin, you're talking about Norse mythology. Where did that all stem from? I'm telling you, white people at one time ran what was going on in Egypt. Whenever that was, I don't know, but Tutankhamun came out with a red beard. The Red Lady of Madrid, look her up. Look that up. The Red Lady of Madrid, 19,000-year-old red-haired woman who once resided in the land of Spain, right? So my point is, Odin took out one of his eyes to see blah, 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 right? And so Ra did the same thing, or Atum, as the same divine principle or person, deity, took out his eye to go out and find the ones that ran away, the two that ran away. Well, he said, in the meantime, I'm going to grow another eye back. He does that, grows the eye back, and the old eye comes back, and he says, well, now that, one eye is cold, one eye is water, one eye is fire, and the third eye is like, well, what am I going to do? Guess where that goes, right? In the mind, the eye in the mind, right? So they were telling us all these things forever. There's a hot side of your body, a cold side, electrical and a magnetic, right? It's all of it is intertwined. The Caduceus staff is a testament to it. All the Greek stuff tells us it. All the Roman stuff tells us it. So when they start coming up with one God rules over everything, all these myths die. Once the myths die, that's the end of free expression and free mankind, So it's just fascinating history that, they're ineffectually labeling as myth, It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy. It's on my bucket list to learn the guitar. It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. My lunch break, about the channel. That's why they push women to become more masculine and men to become feminine. Yeah, it's the destruction of mankind, So I wish I could. I mean, I can't take the cold anymore. It's pissing me off. I think it's like 6 degrees, something like that. Typically, I would stay out here, but all my firewood got buried in the snow, and I ain't digging it out, so... What, now you got, weather warfare and all this stuff, right? The entire country is all disabled all at one time. Something big's probably going to happen here. Ice is everywhere, right? Ice! Using, whatever you call it, the Palantir technology, right? That's the new age of man. Technology is going to rule you motherfuckers, Like, that's what they're doing to us. That's what they're doing. I don't have a problem with border control. I don't have a right, but anything that protects my home and my family and all that, great. Well, what do you mean you want to police me using that same shit you got all those illegal people with, right? I can isolate somebody with all that technology. I can isolate them, make them disappear, keep them alive on social media for whatever period of time, kill their entire family, and keep their accounts all alive in the digital world and say, here's AI, photo of Shane talking about some nonsense, blah, 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 right? Let's go kill these people, wipe them out, and make the population what we want them to be. Anybody that's connected, all that data, that's dangerous stuff. So we wipe all those people out. We keep telling their stories, pretend they're alive. This is what they're able to do with the technology that they're using for ICE. That's real. All of the data about everything about you, and there's a place that we are not supposed to go. That is it, man. Privacy and autonomy and anonymity anonymity. You have a right to that, and that's been taken away. It's been revoked. Your congressional freedom, not congressional, but your whatever. You guys know what I'm trying to say. I'm reading things over here at the same time. But, you know, your constitutional rights, they're gone. They're gone. This technology is going to kill all of that, and they're going to just airtight it all using AI. You think AI is great for learning all the stuff you learn? I do too, but that's going to be the end. You know, that is the end. It's going to know all the things you're asking. It's going to know how to respond to all the things the next person's going to ask, the same questions you have. And that's what they're going to build their next society of men out of, right? The new Eratosthenes is probably going to be a fucking computer. So to steer the age of man, it's all going to be autonomous. That's what they're working on right now. All these people who have held all of the spiritual practices that keep, you know, piety and purity and, you know, your love for the divine for themselves, not to share it with anybody else, right? So there's a point here now. I think everybody's got to take off and, yo, I got my politics out of this. That's a fucking bad idea. Smart cities killing all the water around me. Well, I live off of water. The plants and the animals and the trees and the plant, you know, whatever lives off of water. Why are you taking it? Why are you destroying it? Why are we allowing you to do such a thing, right? Smart cities, data centers, vaccines, you know, that people still emit a Bluetooth signal from the grave with. Right? Well, what is that? It's radiation. Well, they're trapping the light that came down from the heavens to give you life in the earth. Cannot return, right? So you're talking about radiant energy and all that stuff. Like, that's just, I mean, you can literally take it that way, right? It's light energy trapped in graphene. That's how it works. It's called photochemical or photoelectric effect. You know, this is the stuff that Dr. Charles Lieber at Harvard was working on when they started coming up with the vaccines to ensnare human physiology and human life into these technologies. It's like, you know, all the old history, you know, there is a fabric, there is a, you know, a network. The bad guys do exist. There is a conspiracy. Well, guess what? They own all of everything that's doing all of this shit. What the fuck are we going to do about that? You know, it's their money. It's their science. It's their practices, right? Their societies, their businesses, you know, everything that controls everything about your life. How did they do it? It's their money, right? You got to somehow, that's the only answer. I mean, that's the only answer. I've been thinking about this for the last 5 years. It's the only way out is, you know, render money obsolete, render them obsolete in our, you know, in our societies, kick them the hell out. You see them walking into a building, just remove them, right? Tell that your son, daughter, uncle, dad, whoever, right? Hey, you know, you're a state policeman, you're a state representative, you're a whatever, you're the president of the United States. Don't let this happen, right? Start kicking this shit down or doing something to solve these problems. Everybody's got to understand that. You can't be afraid of talking about it now, because we're not coming back after it. We're not coming back. You're going to be eating your shit out of fucking plastic bags for the rest of the time. So is your kids. You're not going to even know what real food ever was. It's all going to come from some engineered bullshit factory, you know, that is owned by Bill Gates or Jeff Soros or Jeff Bezos, you know. So that's the world that we're in now, right? The people that know all these secrets that they kept from you for all that time. So, I don't know, man. Cold. I'm going to go inside. I'll try and hit you guys back in the comments. Hope you enjoyed today's Shane show. Fallen angels and their minions. The fallen angels and their minions. It doesn't necessarily mean they're bad. I was explaining that before, the fallen angels. You know, what they are. But I got to go, man. It's freaking cold, guys. And I'm hungry, too. So, see ya.